Hello, it's Bobby from Coding here, and this is the 5th video in the Building and Launching a Real Django website series. A link to the last video is just up here. But if you've been following along to the videos, which I hope you have, you'll know now that we are building a beautiful website from scratch, blank canvas, all the way up to the point where it's on a server and launched for the world to see. So we're trying to go through every single step, and so far what we've done is we've launched started a new project in Django. We've adjusted the admin page, we've written some views, some URLs and some models, and we've migrated it all, and it's all working very, very well. What we now need to do is build some templates. So if you look in the description of this video, you'll see that there is a link to Django docs, and it goes through in great detail about variables and how you pass them from a views.py to a template. It goes into detail about template tags and filters. Now, I do have a video on my channel already about Django template tags and filters and how to build and create your own. The link is just up here. Please watch it if you want to know any more detail, but we will go through some of it in this video. And what we're going to do, and also there's a couple of other links as well to W3 Schools. It's a great resource for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and anything coding really. There'll be a couple of links in the description. So in this video, we're going to build some templates. They're going to be written in HTML, and also there will be some CSS. We might get onto that into the next video. But if you don't know what HTML and CSS are, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Now, neither of them are technically programming languages. They're more page structure and styles. Now, think of HTML as building blocks and think of CSS as mortar. You have one or the other, well, if you have just one, you're not going to be able to build a nice house. If you have both, then you'll be able to build a beautiful house and it'll all work perfectly. Same as HTML and CSS. If you just have HTML, the website will look and perform poorly. It won't look great. If you just have CSS, you're not going to have much at all. If you have both of them, what you end up with is a great looking website that will work, will be interactive, and that's what most websites are built on. You also then have JavaScript, but we'll go through that later, and that just adds all the bells and whistles and makes everything move, and that's the fancy pants stuff that we add at the end. So today we're going to build our first template, so I jump straight into it to my screen. So I've already got my CMD command prompt open, and I've already written work on did demo. You'll know by now that my typing is terrible, so I've already written that just so I don't get a typo at this early stage. Let's fire up our virtual environment. The brackets on the left hand side here signifies that the virtual environment is actually working, which is great. We don't need to pip install any libraries in this video. We're just going to jump straight in and create the templates. So let's open up the directory that I've got here. And you can see here that we've got the main directory, we've got a media CDN. That is because we are adding images to the media model. If you remember, we added in the model, we had a upload to keyword, and we said we wanted it to go to media images. And we've then got the main app. Now, you can add templates in the main directory under the name templates, and you would need to then add that to your templates directory in the settings file. I will be doing that when I'm working with the handlers, but what I like to do, I like to keep all of my HTML templates for an app in the actual app itself. So what I need to do is I can do this in a command prompt, but we will just do it this way. You need to create a directory called templates. And within that directory, you need another one. And this will be named the same name as the app itself. So we need to call this main. And it will be within this directory where we keep all of the HTML documents for the main app. So if we open up the Sublime, my text editor, which is Sublime Text, you'll see now that in main we've got templates, okay? And we've got main. So what we want to do, we want to save a file into that directory main. Where are we? Did demo. I've got a lot of projects at the minute. And we want to call this one base HTML. Now actually we'll call this index HTML, and then I'll show you how to break it down into component parts and use the extend and use the block template tags. So index HTML. So what we're going to do now, we are going to build a template from scratch just using HTML. And then what we'll do, we'll fire up a server and see what that looks like, and just to demonstrate that it is actually a working template. And then we'll build, or we'll break it down into a base template, and then we'll use the extend template tags, and we'll then do an about, a contact, and a media template as well. So let me just look at my notes, just that I'm not veering off course here. Right, what we want to do, at the very, very top, we want to add this code here. So we want to have document or doc type HTML. So that's the very first thing that we have in there. And then a HTML document is made up of a few component parts. So we have a HTML tag, and with an HTML tag we then have a head and a body, and then you can have a footer if you want, but we will just have HTML. And what I like to close these off whilst I'm doing it. So that is our HTML tag. So everything now needs to go within those. We will then have a head. We'll close off the head, and then we'll then have a body. Okay, and they are the very, very basics of your first HTML document. So we saved it as index.html. So now what we want within our head tags, elements, should I say, we now need to have a couple of meta tags, and we want a title, and then what we'll do before we finish today, we'll add some links, so we'll add some fonts, and we'll add a link to a CSS file that won't actually have anything in it, but we'll have a link in there anyway. So first and foremost, we need a meta tag. And within that meta tag, you know what, I'm just going to move them across, because else I'm going to be typing away and I'm going to be adding all sorts of typos to this. But this is what I'm just going to have in my meta tags for this tutorial. So I've got a HTTP equiv and its content type. We have content is text HTML, and we've got a char set is UTF-8. The next one is the viewport, which is content width, device width, and initial scale 1. So these are just, you can adapt these meta tags, but these are just two very, very basic meta tags that we'll have in our HTML document. What we'll then do is we will add our fonts, and we'll also add a title. So this will be the name of this document itself, and we'll have this as did demo. We then want no, we won't type that out. What we'll do, we'll go onto our browser, this one here. I've already got the Django docs for templates open. We've got the W3 schools. There's one on HTML here, there's one on CSS, which bit of bedtime reading, they're fantastic. And what we'll do, we'll open up and we'll Google API font. There we go, Google Fonts. So open, no, we don't want that. We want Developer API Google Fonts. Sorry. Fonts.google.com. There you go, how's that? And when you open up this, you can then search for any given font that Google has in their libraries. We use, at Did Coding and Did Demo, we use a font called Courier Prime. There we have it. If you click on that, you then get a whole bunch of options here. So you've got regular italic, you've got bold, but all we want for this project is we want the code, the link code for Courier Prime regular. So we'll copy that because it has all of the coding there. You don't need to type it. Open up your HTML document once more, and we'll simply add it in there. That's all you need to do. Now, fonts for project, and what we'll do, we'll press Control, oh, we won't press that, Control slash. If you press Control slash on a Windows machine, what it'll do, it'll comment out whatever text you have, and you can do that on any part here, on any element. Okay, so there are your fonts. That's what we're going to want. And then what we also want is a link to a CSS file that we haven't created yet. So we'll create that once we've added the link. We'll save it in there, won't have anything in there, but we'll be adding to that file when we do the CSS tutorial in the next video. So link, and this is rel equals style sheet. And we want href, and this is the reason, no, hang on, what we want to do before we mess around with that, at the top of the page before doc, we want to use one of Django's built-in template tags called load. We've already configured static and media. We want to have access to the static URLs and the static files that are in this case it's in the project, but they will be in a S3 bucket by the time we're finished. And how you gain access to them is you use a tag called load, and you access them, and this is all in the docs and this is all in the video that's on my channel. You access them by this syntax here. You add a load, and then we add the name static. That tag will load all of the static files that we have in our static directory that we haven't built yet. Do you know what? Let's do that now. We're back in main. If you go back into the main directory, you add new, add folder. We just want to call this static. And if you have watched the first video in this series, we're referring to the static files in the directory called static. So there we have it. And what we'll do, we'll open a new file and we'll save this, save as, and we'll save this in the static directory and we'll call it main.css. There we go. It's got bugger all in it, but we will add that in the next tutorial. But now we can refer to it. So in this href, what we do is we use another template tag and we say static. And now you say the name of the file or the where the file is actually stored or saved. In this case, it's directly in the static directory, so it's main CSS. Now, if we had that file in another directory called assets, that's how you'd add that into the link there. But we haven't, it's main CSS, so that will load that without an issue at all. Let's save index file. What we then want to do is we then need to create our body. Now, at this part of the project, all we're doing is we're building a very, very basic page with a big image. It's basically going to be a coming soon or a maintenance page. It'll be a big image with a logo in the top left and I'll have a bit of text in the middle saying whatever we want it to say. So that's what we're going to build. So we want to open up with a div element. And within that element, we then want two further divs. So we want div, close that down. To be honest, I do this all of the time. It just saves missing. It saves forgetting to close those elements off in your HTML. So we will have this as we'll call this class, and we'll call this BG img, big image. And we will call this top left. This will be middle. And within there, we will have, this is where we'll have the H1 tag. And this is actually really important with SEO. You should only ever have one H1 tag in your HTML document. Always remember that. And we'll call this home. I'm just taking this from the project on my other screen. So we've got top left. In the top left, we want to bring in an image, img, and in there we haven't actually got an image to bring in there currently, so we will though. src, we want to call in our static again. And in this case, we will just, where should we put that? Right, okay. This is for our logo. So I haven't got a directory there. I'll add that in a second. But I've got a branding directory that I use in most of my projects for my Dig Coding channel. I'll drag that into static and we will look for the logo called did logo PNG. So it will be in a directory called branding. It's did_coding.png. In your project, you would have whatever logo you need. It will be called whatever. The name that you put in there is the name that you'd call the actual file itself, and it could be a JPEG, it could be a PNG, it could even be a GIF. But that's what we're going to use. And on this also, because the file is quite big in the directory, we'll actually use some CSS in the HTML itself. And this will be width, and we'll have 150 pixels. Great. And then what we want in the main div, what we'll have a background image. So we'll have the same image for all of our, this will be background, oh no, we want background image. Most text editors will actually give you some idea of what you can select. So background image. We want URL, open and close the brackets, and then within this we can then use our template tag to select static am I doing this right? I believe I am. Static URL. There we have it. It didn't look right. And on this one we're just going to want we'll have this as default.jpg. We haven't got that image in the directory either, so we'll get that from my my main directory. So that's it. That is the base. There's a very basic HTML document now. It will render well on the screen. We haven't got no CSS, so it won't look fantastic, but we'll actually be able to see something. So let me quickly bring in the branding. So that's the wrong one. Well, that's actually the main directory, but I'll look in here. So it's branding. Copy that across. Paste. There we go. And we also want, and this is an image that I've pulled off from Shutterstock with the right licensing and everything, and I've adjusted it in Photoshop so it's the right size. You can use any image, but I'm using this image for this tutorial. So we've now got a main CSS file, so it's a cascading style sheet in our static. We've got a default JPEG in our static, and we've got a directory called branding with logos in it. Now we're referring to those files in here using the load static template tag. So we're pulling in from a link, we're pulling in the main CSS into the header. We are also then pulling in the default JPEG into the main div, class BGIMG. We'll be referring to that when we build out the CSS tomorrow, or in the next video, should I say. And that's it. That is the index HTML. What we now want to do is we want to break this down so that we haven't got to keep repeating ourselves, because of a lot of, and this is quite standard practice. So what we'll do, we'll save this as base. And then what we'll do, you need to decide in here what will remain on every single one of your HTML documents. Well, we want head on all of it. We want body on all of it. We want to close this off. The only thing that would change from one HTML document to the next is this piece here, because we might want to have a different image. In this case, we're using the same one, but so that's irrelevant. But it could change. So it's this piece of HTML here that would change from one to the next. So what we do is in the base directory, rather than keep repeating ourselves from one file to the next, what we do is we use a template tag called block. And in this case, we're going to call it content. And then what you do, you close this particular one off by saying end block. And now we can delete that and save this as base HTML. Now in the index HTML, which we were playing around with earlier, we no longer need, it's kind of the polar opposite of what we just did. We want to delete out everything that will remain in the base HTML. We'll keep the template tag because we do still need to access static, so keep load. But above that, we need to use another template tag called extends, because what we state here, let's make another line. extends, and this extends the template main base.html. And this just said, what that block does is it says that this piece of HTML extends the base HTML. So when you render this index HTML, join the two up. And then what we need to do is we need to say where we want this piece of HTML to actually go in the extended HTML file. And we do that by referring to the block again. So it's block content. And then underneath that, we want end block. Now that will render beautifully. That will, those two files will combined will end up ultimately looking like how the previous file looked. So now we want three other HTML documents. We want one for contact, we want one for about, we want one for media. And if you remember in views, these are the ones that we're referring to: main home, main about, main contact, main media. I've just called that index. So what we'll do, we'll change this to index. That way it will render the right template. So index, let's save as, we'll have this as about. And then we change this to about. Save it as, we'll save this as contact. Contact, save, and save as. And this one will be media. See, it takes a little while to actually build the initial template, unless you're buying a template online and you can actually manipulate what's already there. But building it from scratch takes a little bit of time. But once you've done it, actually using the template tags that come straight out of the box of Django, it allows you to actually build numerous different templates very, very quickly once you've got your base code there. So there we have it. We've now got the correct directory configuration for our templates in our app. All that there is left to do in this tutorial is to fire up server, run server. Let's see if I have done this correctly. We'll go there and we'll go Control-Shift-N to open up an incognito browser, and then we should be able to go to localhost. Hold on, I've got another, there we go. Let's break that quickly and do it again. There we go, incognito, localhost. There we have it, we've got a home. This is our index HTML. Remember what I said? If you've got bricks and no mortar, or you've got mortar with no bricks, it looks terrible. Well, this is HTML with no mortar, okay, with no CSS. /about, okay, that's picking up from a different template. /contact, that's our contact HTML. And lastly, if it all works, we put in media, pulls up from the media HTML. So that all worked nicely. It looks terrible, but that is the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's made sense. But please subscribe and please like. It's always very, very helpful. And that is it for today. I will do another video about CSS next. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.